After a short winter layoff which saw double world champion Niki Lauda decide to end his retirement, and not, as you heard, for money, the Grand Prix world came happily to sunny Kyalami, high up in the South African Transvaal, only to face a protest against unacceptable regulations from the drivers, which involved all of them in missing the first day's practice. But now the first Grand Prix of 1982 is ready to go, with new drivers and new cars, 7 of which have an enormous advantage over the rest. For Kyalami's altitude is over 6,000 feet, and that means the turbocharged Renaults and Ferraris, the new Brabham BMWs and the Tolman have at least a 150 horsepower bonus over most of their rivals. And didn't it show up in practice? For the fastest 6 cars on the starting grid are turbocharged, with the 1980 South African Grand Prix winner, Frenchman René Arnoux, in pole position in his Renault, ahead of world champion Nelson Piquet in his new Brabham BMW. Third fastest, Gilles Villeneuve's new Ferrari, with Riccardo Patrese fourth, making his first race appearance as a Brabham driver. Fifth, it's Alain Prost Renault, with Didier Pironi's Ferrari sixth. And then the non-turbos, headed by Keke Rosberg's Williams seventh, and teammate Carlos Reutemann 8th. Derek Warwick's a superb 14th in the Tolman Turbo, with Nigel Mansell a lowly 18th in the JPS 87, and Derek Daly 24th in the Theodore. So it looks like a certain turbo car win here at Kyalami, but 77 laps of the 2.6-mile circuit in today's heat is a long, taxing way to go.
Well, with the rather unfortunate political dramas and aggravations now out of the way, thank goodness, or certainly out of the way for the moment, we finally got a race. But of course, this is going to demonstrate a total superiority of the turbos that we won't see later in the year when we go away from the altitude of Kyalami racetrack, where the turbos enjoy a big advantage because they can run their engines by pumping the thin air from 6,000 feet in at normal sea level pressure, therefore running at about 500 horsepower, whereas the normally aspirated cars huff and puff away to get only about 400 horsepower because they're 20% down, bearing in mind that there's 20% less air here for them to breathe. However, it looks, because of sea level testing in the winter, as if turbo is going to be the way to go this year. The turbos were quicker at sea level as well, around a fairly twisty track, and the big question is going to be their reliability. It's very hot here today. Turbos don't like it too hot, as do no racing cars, but they're particularly sensitive about it. So we just have to hope that we get a race of a reasonable pattern, some fun and games.
That is René Arnoux in pole position. The engine revs rising. There's an enormous amount of horsepower down on the grid. The weather conditions are perfect. The course is dry. The temperature is hot. Ideal racing conditions, although there are some dull clouds overhead. Nelson Piquet is alongside René Arnoux, then Villeneuve and Patrese. There you see the red light, and it is starting at the back, and it's go! Arnoux and Prost get away down to Crowthorne Corner, the right-hander. This is the longest straight in Grand Prix racing. From there, they go down into Barbecue Bend, up into 5th gear, into the Young's Cage sweep, the left-hander, and you can see the lead now that the 2 cars in front have got.
Yes, well, the Renaults got their turn to turbocharged work. They've been able to start well last year, but the 2 Brabhams seem to have a terrible struggle getting off the line. However, I don't think that's going to be a big problem. They've got so much power here. Overtaking shouldn't be a problem, unless, of course, the Ferraris can match them on the straight line. But it was interesting to see that the Brabham turbo was obviously difficult to get going with the throttle lag that turbos have. And so now they've got a little bit of work to do. Piquet will have to make his way up.
And into the Armco, in fact, into the catch fencing on the very first lap. That's Jean-Pierre Jarier, who is the slowest man to qualify in the Osella. He is obviously perfectly all right. And meantime, bursting out of West Bank and in across the line go the leaders. And it is René Arnoux in the Renault, leading Alain Prost in second position. Well up are the 2 Ferraris. of Gilles Villeneuve and Didier Pironi. And here is race leader René Arnoux.
René Arnoux taking it pretty steadily. Alan Prost following him. They're driving a fairly undramatic race up front. The Ferraris are there, but they're not an immediate threat. There seems to be some sort of a drama. We've got a lot of smoke. Somebody's obviously off the track. The driver out of the car. It looks like Nelson Piquet to me.
And we have no sign of Nigel Mansell. As we look across the circuit, we can see a stricken car, and it is certainly that of Nigel Mansell out of the race. Well, the Williams' cars are doing well in the form of Carlos Reutemann and Keke Rosberg. And somewhere out there watching them in Australia with all the other Channel 9 viewers is ex-world champion Alan Jones. And that is Villeneuve's car. Villeneuve with a great plume of smoke behind him. As I forecast, the turbos are not going to last this race. Villeneuve has very clearly blown the car, and we are looking now to see where ex-world champion Niki Lauda is, with Villeneuve certainly out and going into the pit.
Yes, Lauda's running in about 10th or 11th place on the track. Watson is... Well, that's a shame looking at Villeneuve. I hope he's not putting oil on the track. It's probably just a burning turbocharger. They tend to eat the turbines and then do a piston. But they often say he's putting oil down. Niki Lauda had a bit of trouble qualifying yesterday. He crashed very early on in the one and only qualifying session. He was just about to go out. He only crashed very lightly. He repaired the car and then it rained. So he didn't qualify as well as he would have hoped, because he's been in testing the quickest of the normally aspirated Cosworth engine runners, and in fact has driven by all agreements outstandingly well, coming straight back in where he left off. If anything, driving better than when he retired. So he's working his way up the field. At the moment, John Watson is leading him quite well and is running up at the front of the Ford engines group.
We are now on lap 8 in the 77th lap South African Grand Prix, as you look at race leader René Arnoux, and the order is René Arnoux leading with Alain Prost. There he is, right in his wheel track. In third position, the one of the two Ferraris left in the race, and it is that of Didier Pironi, with Villeneuve out. In fourth position, it is Riccardo Patrese, Piquet's teammate in the second of the two Brabham BMWs. In fifth position now, it's Carlos Reutemann, who had such a battle with Piquet for the World Championship last year. In sixth position, it is Keke Rosberg, and then number 7, John Watson, with behind him in 8th position, Jacques Lafitte in the Talbot. Then it is Michele Alboreto, and in 10th position, ex-double world champion Niki Lauda. Well, that is Sven Goldberg, the Swedish driver, in the second of the two Tyrrell cars, and we think we definitely have a new star in the Tyrrell team in the form of Michele Alboreto, who has driven magnificently in practice and was 10th fastest, not only in practicing, but in the practice warm-up period. It's Alain Prost, it is indeed Alain Prost in the lead, and we've missed, unfortunately, the passing manoeuvre. Well, I can't tell you where they passed, we didn't see it. All I can tell you is that you now look at race leader Prost and Arnoux.
Hang on, and that's Patrese, and he looks to be slowed down and in trouble. Yes, he's coming into the pits, but he's limping. He may not even quite make the pit. So Patrese in trouble, to be expected with the turbos and their first outing. They're very difficult engines technically to get right.
Last year at Kyalami, the race was blighted by the fact that a lot of the top entrants were not there. Ferrari weren't here, Renault weren't here, Alfa Romeo weren't here, because of the political struggle between FISA and FOCA. But now they're back, and so are the spectators.
Yes, well, Niki Lauda I'm watching obviously with a lot of interest. Man, my vintage of racing, and he's going extremely well now. He's disposed of Lafitte and Alboreto. He's worked his way up through the field very well, and he's now got John Watson in his sight. He's about 4 or 5 seconds behind him, so we know John Watson is an established common denominator, as it were, top-class driver. They're in the same car, and so it'll be interesting to see now if Nicky can make any impression on him. I think he's closing a little bit, but it won't be a fast thing, and it'll be very interesting to see whether they go to battle if they ever get into a line of serve situation.
Didier Pironi, there he is, in third position on his 23rd lap now, with the 2 Renaults in front of him, and the question is, what is the gap between third place man Didier Pironi in the Ferrari that we're looking at now, and Carlos Reutemann, who is in 4th position? If the Ford Cosworth engine cars can score points here at Kyalami, they will be on much more of an even Steven basis after this race. Pironi then, and as we look at the young French charger in the Ferrari, Barry Gill has news from the pit.
Well, first of all, Murray, I've just talked to a very disappointed world champion, Nelson Piquet, who said yes, he did pull up at the start, but then he had trouble with locking rear brakes. He managed to avoid a crash once, and then the second time there was nothing he could do about it. As I left Nelson, of course, for Tracy came in, oil pressure problems on the Brabham car. Both the Brabhams are out.
Cheever's got electrical problems, and poor old Gilles Villeneuve in the Ferrari, once again an engine problem. 6 casualties already. Back to you, Murray.
Yes, and the engine problem that Gilles Villeneuve had was obviously a repetition of the turbo problem that Ferraris have had for a lot of last year. But Pironi, thus far, and we're looking at the third place man now, seems to be avoiding that problem, and he's going on his way without any trouble at all. No, he's not. As I say, Didier Pironi slows up and comes into the pit. Well, my goodness, it pays never to make a prophecy. And this is going to be tyres, obviously, or are they just checking the car while they change the tyres? There goes his team manager, talking to Pironi without the benefit of an electrical headset. And now, of course, with Pironi slipping down through the field, that means that Carlos Reutemann can come up and take 3rd place. It means that Keke Rosberg can come up and take 4th position. James.
Yes, they've got a bit stuck on the left rear wheel there. Everything's spinning the wheels, they're still on the jack. So a bit of a slow pit stop for Pironi's noticed 2 front wheels then to have finished a long time before. So Pironi's lost a fair bit of time. It's interesting to see what he can make up. But I think tyres may play quite a big part in this race. I was speaking to the McLaren drivers before the race, Lauda and Watson, and they were worried both on temperature and wear for the tyres. They reckon they were pretty marginal for the tyres to last the race in healthy condition with enough rubber on, and before that they'd have to worry about them getting too hot. Well, it's obviously afflicted Pironi, and he's not the first one who's been in. Of course, the turbos, because they have more power, going a bit quicker through the fast corners, will strain the tyres, put considerably more load on the tyres, in fact, than the normally aspirating cars. But that doesn't, of course, mean that they will have any less trouble. There is Reutemann, is it? Yes, Carlos Reutemann, up into 3rd place, driving a very steady race, and picking up the pieces of the turbo cars, which one would expect to have a little more trouble with reliability. They don't have the long-running experience, of course, that these Cosworth engines have.
As we look at Carlos Reutemann, I can confirm that he is definitely in 3rd place, and this is the man that won the 1981 South African Grand Prix, albeit without any of the turbo cars here. And ahead of Reutemann are the only 2 powerfully running turbo cars left in the race, those of race leader Alain Prost and his teammate René Arnoux in 2nd position. And behind Carlos, who finished 2nd in the 1981 World Championship, after a disastrous race in Las Vegas, and how has been brought back into the Williams team after he said
he refused to drive with Alan Jones, who's sitting out there in Australia watching this race, if Alan decided he was going to come out of retirement. Well, Alan stayed on the farm, and Carlos Reutemann has come back. And there is John Watson, number 7, who is well up through the field now. He is in 5th position. Prost leads, Arnoux second. In 3rd position, Reutemann. In 4th position is Rosberg. In 5th position is John Watson. And in 6th position now is Niki Lauda. And there is Watson, number 7, in that 5th position. So Niki Lauda, the ex-world champion, has fought his way up through the field, partly due to others dropping out, and he is now actually in World Championship points in his first Grand Prix for 2 years. And there is the Tyrrell, and that is the second of the 2 Tyrrells. That is Slim Morgood, the Swedish driver, in his first Grand Prix in the Tyrrell team, because last year he drove an ATS. He's had a lot of problems in practice, including going off twice and removing several corners of the car. It looks as though he's trying to restart, and obviously he's decided, I've never seen anybody doing this before, reversing a car along the circuit, but he's obviously trying to, I have not the remotest idea what Morgan thinks he's up to.
Trying to execute a 3-point turn, I think, Murray. He's got a lot of traffic going past. It's certainly a most extraordinary manoeuvre, but he's finally got away. He must have had a spin there, and his nose is flapping, as you see. So I hope he goes slowly, because if that blows off, it looks as if it could, apart from the potential damage it could do to him, it could blow into the face of a following car. That's a potentially dangerous situation. John Watson still fighting his way through the back markers, and Lauda is closing in a little bit, but he's got the 2 Alphas to get rid of before he can challenge properly.
Into the pits comes Slim Morgan, and you can see what the trouble is. It looks as though the whole of the nose section of the car has come adrift. There's Ken Tyrrell just out of the picture. Is he going to be tired? Can't possibly be, surely. Anyway, there is race leader Alain Prost on his 33rd lap now. And where is the second place man, René Arnoux, in relation to Prost? The answer is a long, long way back in comparison with the gap which existed between the 2 Frenchmen earlier on. But this is the excitement, the battle for 5th position between the white car, the leader of these 2, who is coming up to lap 1 of the ATSs, and the man who's driving the white Williams car, number 6, is the Finnish driver Keke Rosberg. He had a terrible season last year in the Fittipaldi car, and he's going through. And now Watson spun off at one point here, but was perfectly all right. And now he's passed, and John Watson has taken a great deal out of the lead that Keke Rosberg had over him. Rosberg in 4th position, and we could well see a change for 4th place soon. That's Prost touring. Prost seems to be going much, much slower. Alain Prost, we're getting the turbocharged cars are in trouble, and Alain Prost is one of them. He's being passed by car after car. This is the previous race leader, a race of real problems, and you can see that. His front wheel has locked up, and you can see the brake is locking up, and it looks as though Alain Prost's race is run on lap 41, and this is going to blow things wide open, because it will mean that only the 1980 South, and look at his rear tyre, off goes the wheel.
Prost was not only in trouble, that's the problem. Prost's front wheel was off the ground because he has punctured his rear side rear.
In the lead on lap 42 is the sole Renault which is running at the moment, and it is that of the 1980 South African Grand Prix winner René Arnoux. In 2nd position now, it's Carlos Reutemann, the man who won last year So we have the 1980 winner leading, the 1981 winner second.
Meanwhile, Peroni has slipped past Watson and is now challenging Rosberg.
And Pironi is coming through the field like lightning because he is now closing up on and is probably going to have taken by the time we see him next, Nicky Rosberg. So, currently the order is Arnoux, Reutemann, and then Rosberg in third position with Pironi gaining past.
Yes, of course. But Arnoux's big threat now is Didier Pironi. And if he wants to beat him, and he is having tyre trouble, he should get into the pits quickly and get onto some new tyres. Because staying out there will only be a disadvantage to him. And he must do it fast. Now this is where a driver's ability to think and his pit's ability to inform him properly are very important.
Rosberg up into third, Pironi up into third place, and Rosberg displaced. One Renault then effectively left in the race, that of René Arnoux leading it with Carlos Reutemann in second place. But no, two Renaults left in the race. We must have missed that coming out of the pit because Alain Prost is back in the race, and a quick look at the lap chart tells me that he has rejoined in seventh position with fresh new tyres, so we can really expect action from Alain Prost from now on. And there's René Arnoux, race leader René Arnoux. Now, is he going to pull away from these two cars, including number 10 there, which is the ATS of Eliseo Salazar, and number 3, which is Michele Alboreto's car? If he does not pull away, we can be sure that René Arnoux is in some sort of trouble and going a lot slower than he could do. And he's not pulling away very much because the differential in speed between the Renaults and the Ford-powered cars here is absolutely enormous. Meantime, Alboreto is going past and taking the inside line at Crowthorne, and now you see that René Arnoux has indeed, as the race leader, pulled out quite a gap over the Tyrrell and the ATS behind him.
Didier Pironi is close right up on Reutemann now, and will be lining up, I think, to pass him the next time they hit the main straight. He didn't look quite close enough as he went past our position just then. Meanwhile, Prost, of course, is now a big threat, and I would think he's catching Pironi fast enough to catch Pironi before the end of the race if he can keep going at the current speed.
And there is the old master, although he's not so old, in fact, 32-year-old Niki Lauda in his comeback drive, and what a superb drive it is. The Marlborough is going well. Nicky is in terrific form. He's coming up through the field, and he could well, if he goes on as he is now, finish in the points in his comeback World Championship drive.
Well, Alain Prost is now pretty close behind the battle for second place and catching him very fast indeed. So Reutemann, although he's doing a magnificent job fending off the Ferrari of Didier Pironi, looks pretty powerless to do anything about the progress of Alain Prost, who's absolutely flying now. And they both passed Reutemann. As they go past our commentary position, Reutemann is now fourth. Pironi is up into second place, and Prost has followed him through to third. And Alain Prost has just outbraked Didier Pironi up into second place. Terrific drive by Alain Prost.
You are looking at Alain Prost with something flapping on the fairing on the back rear of the car. You can see a bit of the actual streamlining has broken loose and will be affecting the handling of the car.
Yes, no, that was done when the tyre burst. It was flapping the threaded tyre, and it damaged the bodywork a bit. And I think that's been like that ever since.
A change of position as we look at the screen there, because the man who has come back to racing, Niki Lauda, after being out in 1980, out in 1981, has caught and passed his teammate. And there, number 8, is the brilliant Austrian Niki Lauda, who is now, therefore, up into 6th position. And Prost is leading. We haven't seen it on the screen, but we've had a message, and Pironi comes into the pit.
Pironi is into the pit. I'm sorry to talk off picture, now I'm talking on picture. There is Didier Pironi, and that means that Carlos Reutemann is going to go into third position. Tremendously exciting stuff at the end of the South African Grand Prix.
I think Arnoux must be in trouble because Prost caught him so fast. There has to be some sort of problem, which could mean that Reutemann is now firing at second place. Pironi appears not to have gone into pit. He's limping round. That, I think, is Pironi going slowly on the inside, but I can't really see the purpose of that. Although, of course, Denton's popping and banging, it's pretty difficult to fix. If he can limp to the line, he might get a place, but I doubt it at that speed.
Well, I think it is another pause and consider time, because on lap 69, as we look at Niki Lauda in the red and white Marlborough, and Elio De Angelis, number 11, who is in the John Player special, and it is still Alain Prost in the lead from René Arnoux, with in third position Reutemann, and Pironi obviously in trouble, and that means to say that up into fourth place will come Niki Lauda.
Yes, well, Niki Lauda's found a new lease of life. He's caught past his teammate John Watson after struggling to stay with him for a lot of the race. But in the meantime, Carlos Reutemann is now only 6 seconds behind René Arnoux, who's in second place. Reutemann, of course, in third. And if René Arnoux is in trouble, as we surmise that he is, he's not going to hold that second place and can't rate the podium. Didier Pironi has just limped past our commentary position into the pit, so he looks to be out of the running after a fighting drive back to the field when he stopped to change his tyres. But the interest must now turn on second place.
Pironi into the pits, and on lap 73, it is Prost still, Arnoux still in second place, Reutemann is still third, Lauda is fourth, in fifth position it is Keke Rosberg, and in sixth position, and I'm just going to take the gap once more as the leader comes up into the top straight, and over the line any moment now will go Alain Prost. There he is. And he's into Crowthorne. And what is the gap between the second and third then, as the leader is well on his way? And it's Carlos Reutemann second. Carlos Reutemann has got ahead of René Arnoux. So Arnoux is in trouble, and you will see now, there is Reutemann taking Crowthorne, and behind him a Renault that is obviously in trouble, because the brilliant Carlos Reutemann, who came back to racing after saying that he was going to retire after his bitter disappointment in doing so badly at the Caesars Palace Grand Prix, who won here in South Africa, is going to be second this year if Prost keeps going for the rest of the race in his current position.
Well, a word I think I must have about Niki Lauda's race, because he stuck with it. He hasn't driven the racing car for 32.5 years in anger. And it's very hard work to come out in this heat. It's very hot here in Johannesburg today, and he stayed with it. He struggled in the first half of the race. He caught his teammate John Watson eventually, and Keke Rosberg in the what was last year's all-conquering Williams, probably the best chassis. And he's up into fourth place. I don't think he'll catch René Arnoux, who's running third, unless Arnoux's trouble deepens a bit, whatever it may be, because he's quite a long way behind. But an outstanding fighting drive when physical exhaustion must have been a major factor for Niki. By about a third of the way through the race, it looks as if we've got a very, very boring procession on our hands. And what with the puncture to Alain Prost and his subsequently stirring drive back through the field after losing a lot of time because he had to limp round at half a lap. Arnoux slowing down, Pironi's fight back through the field, followed by his unfortunate demise with what sounded like engine trouble. He was popping and banging. But in the end, we got a very exciting race. And it's settled down now. It's a little bit processional, unless there's any major mechanical drama here. Arnoux is too far ahead of Lauda, who's in fourth place, to be caught, unless his trouble deepens, as I suggested earlier. But and Prost is comfortably ahead, and Reutemann has driven a typically immaculate race, no problems, no fireworks, good and steady into an excellent second place.
And Alain Prost comes out of Ford corner up to the S's. He is now on his last lap. That fourth Grand Prix win is almost in his grasp as he comes out of Westbank. He really could coast home now and win, but he's coasting not at all. Alain Prost approaches the finishing line on his last lap at some 200 miles an hour and completes it to win the South African Grand Prix, the second Renault victory in 3 years, and last year they weren't here. And now we wait for Carlos Reutemann, and there he goes. Carlos Reutemann has finished second. René Arnoux will be third, so it will be first and third for the two Renaults. And a famous victory for the French team. There goes René Arnoux over the line. And not so far behind him in fourth position, Niki Lauda. Niki Lauda on his comeback drive had finished in fourth position. A terrific effort, because being out of Grand Prix racing for 2 years and having to adapt to these cars takes a lot of doing. Keke Rosberg takes fifth position, and John Watson is sixth, and that is the completion of the points orders. We've seen some superb racing. Let us fervently hope that this is the end of the politics, of the trouble that we've had with the drivers, although there is a big meeting to come next week, and that the remaining 15 Grand Prix of the 1982 World Championship are going to be as good as the first, this one at South Africa, Kyalami.
Well, even before the excitement of the Grand Prix had died down, came the news that all the drivers who had threatened to strike before the race in the row over the so-called super licenses had been suspended. A meeting has been called in Paris next week in another effort to finals.